Like, I know for sure my dad didn't have any conversations with us around sex. It was just, don't bring a baby into my house. If you bring a baby into my house, you're on your own. All of us have grandparents and aunties and uncles that have 10 plus kids. Yeah, it's because they're just as horny as everybody else. They're just as horny as the white people.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sofa Convo. And thank you for stopping by today, actually. We really appreciate you stopping by and joining these conversations. And we're talking about sex education in your typical African or Caribbean home, right? So we're kind of looking at how people grow up in their homes as Africans or as black people and never get to have some information or education around sex and what to expect and how your body is going to change when you grow up, and then what you can do to kind of overcome all of these things. And today I've got like someone very special. One very hot, fine babe like that. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? So make some noise for Amanda, aka Shuku Shaker.
The Shuku stuff.
There you go. There you go. Okay, welcome Amanda. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I am great. I mean, another day of social distance, another day of coronavirus. Are we kind of too close? Yeah. I think we are. I mean, what is it, 2 meters that we're supposed to get apart?
Well, we kind of washed our hands and we did hand sanitizers and all
everything we need to do.
And I got her tested for coronavirus this morning, so.
And I'm as negative as they come.
Okay, so this is our very first conversation, right? Mm-hmm. I've got like a bottle of 1935 Italian champagne.
1898. Which one's 1935?
I just seen 1935.
They need to know the real you.
Okay, this is 1898 Dom Perignon, premium limited edition.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bel Air. 1898. I don't know what he's talking about. But what are we toasting to? How about that?
Actually, like, this is a toast to like better conversations. So to changing the world one conversation at a time.
One conversation at a time.
And to more conversations, to more solutions, and to more beautiful societies.
What's a conversation without some alcohol? Bliss.
This has to pop, right?
Yeah. If you spit it on me.
Yeah. So starting points, right? So we want to talk about sex education, right? So why is this a problem? So why do having people grow up in your homes and as Africans or black people and not getting them to know about sex education and all of those things they're going to expect as they grow up? Why is it a problem? So personal experience, and I've talked to like lots of friends, like not for one day did my parents talk to me about sex. So no one told you, okay, you're going to grow up, you're going to get to 16 years old and you're going to change in this way. Or like no one talked to me before going to school, like, okay, this is what you're going to experience and this is what you're going to have to deal with when you get into school. So it was more like people kind of expected me to do the right thing, right? So they just kind of, okay, just go out there, we trust you, do the right thing, or else we're going to kill you if you make any kind of mistake, right? So it was, I think it was, and it's kind of very common around like African people, right, where we see like sex as one of those not so good conversations where we want people to just go out there and make the best choice. You want to share like your experience growing up also?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me it was a little bit different. Like, I know for sure my dad didn't have any conversations with us around sex. It was just, don't bring a baby into my house. If you bring a baby into my house, you're on your own. My mom tried a little bit. Like, I remember even when I started menstruating, I was 11 years old, like really, really young. Most people start like 15, 14. I was super young. And luckily, my mom had that conversation with me before it even happened, because some of my friends weren't as lucky because their parents were like, oh, we can't even talk about something like that. That's natural, right? But my mom tried, but came from a very religious perspective. So it was like, Eve ate the apple, and because Eve ate the apple, now all women suffer, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up thinking like, oh, you know, like just not even having like a proper understanding of what was happening in my body. Luckily, we had sex education in school here. But again, it's like, it's different when you're learning it from like a really formal view at school than having people at home telling you like, hey, you know, this is what you do, what you shouldn't do, how to protect yourself. It was just if you did it, you'll get pregnant, and getting pregnant is the worst thing that could happen to you.
And they're gonna kill you, right?
Exactly. So of course you get to an age where, you know, you start feeling things hormonally, just all these changes are happening, and you can't even talk about it. You can't even, like, there's just nothing you can do, because all you're thinking in your mind is, if I get pregnant, I'm in trouble. If I get pregnant, I'm in trouble.
One thing I always had a question about was, why do we, as blacks or like as Africans, think like words like penis and vagina is like vulgar words? Like, I never understand that, because like it's a part of your body, right? So why do we like even use like other words for like penis? We say like, I know back home we say like John Thomas back home. We say bulala.
Yeah.
So like things like, I mean, like, why do we use like other words in place of penis? And like, is it something that's wrong, or do we just think, I don't know?
Well, I think it just, again, it goes back to the mentality of our perception about sex, right? So when you look at sex as something that's wrong, rather than looking at it as something that's natural and part of your biology, then you won't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, I know for like growing up for us, part of the reason why our parents didn't talk about sex was because they felt like if they talked to you about sex, then it would make you want to go have sex, right? Which, I mean, that doesn't make any sense, but to them it's like, why even bring up the conversation in general?
Yeah.
You know, if I talk about vagina, penis, whatever, then maybe my kid is going to get curious and want to start, you know, touching themselves or figuring these things out
By themselves.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of part of it. Is just, if you open up that dialogue at all, then they think that it may make the person want to go and start experimenting.
One thing I also think is this, right? So another problem is when people are kind of left in the dark about sex, it brings about like all these consent issues, right? So if I'm growing up and no one has ever held me back to say, okay, hey man, you're gonna grow up and this is what's gonna happen to your body, and you're gonna change, you're gonna grow pubic hair, you're gonna have like more hormones coming out.
Yeah.
Like all of those things, right? So when I'm kind of left by myself to figure out myself by myself, then it's possible like things like even sex, like sex education, even sexual consent, like how do you talk to a woman and kind of respect her body?
Yeah.
And what about like sexual consent also? Like what's even like consent with a lady and all that? So like those kind of conversations, kind of you're left by yourself to figure out yourself by yourself. So it's kind of tricky, right? There's like a loophole in like our, I guess, growing up or something.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like what you said about when you leave things in the dark, then you don't even understand how to respect it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that, okay, like our parents always say, oh, if you behave like these white people, they're so free when it comes to sex, they're corrupt, they're corrupting us, they're corrupting our children, this and that and this and that. But I mean, when you actually look at the statistics of the people who are engaging a lot in these like really messed up activities when it comes to sex, I'm not saying, I mean, I don't have any of the facts myself. Like I find that like most of my white friends just have a little bit more, they're more open-minded about sex, so they're a little bit more respectful about it. Because they've been having those conversations, there's just not that awkwardness about it. But with us, it's almost like it's so aggressive. And I feel like all of that, like you said, is because we're not having these conversations. So there's just a lot of stigma around what sex even is. You know, when it comes to pleasure, etc., right? So,
and like one very funny thing is like I find, I mean, I'm not trying to throw shades though, like, but back when we have like so many kids, I'm like, bro, you guys are having like you guys are having sex all around. Why don't you talk about these things in public? So it's not like you see like people with like 10, 20 kids. I'm like, you are doing this shit, man. Why are you not talking about it? So if you're doing this in private, why is it now something that's kind of bad outside? Like, so
exactly,
it's like a double standard or like hypocrisy maybe.
I think it is for sure, because you know the problem, and it's a problem, it's not a problem, it depends on how you see it. I personally think it's a problem. I think it stems a lot from religion, because many of us Africans, either we're Muslim, we're Christian, and what we believe is that sex is just meant to be for reproduction. It's just, let me get married to somebody, let's have a bunch of kids, our kids will take care of our resources, etc., etc. So of course, there's no such thing as contraceptives, birth control. Like, why would you need that if sex is mainly supposed to just be for reproduction? So all these people who are having sex like animals, having, you know, all of us have grandparents and aunties and uncles that have 10 plus kids. Yeah, it's because they're just as horny as everybody else. They're just as horny as the white people. They want to have sex, but because of the culture, it's like, no, it's just for reproduction. So instead, there's just, like, how many of us know of people back home who are broke, that can't even take care of their kids, but they have like 10, 15 kids.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because no birth control, nothing.
I mean, one thing that I find is like people are actually doing stuff, but because it's kind of like and I saw like it's taboo, so they never talk about it in public. So what's the point? I'm not saying go out there and have sex, but
we are saying that.
you're saying that.
I don't know about him, but that's what I'm saying.
But please have this conversation for sure. Like it's important.
It's important.
101%. It's very important, and it's going to help people make better choices. It's going to help.
people